Yo, what is up, NBA fans? It's Mike here. Today, I want to be talking about the Portland Trail Blazers because I watched their game against the Kings, and obviously preseason means, basically nothing. But despite not having Yusuf Nurkic or Zach Collins, they looked really freaking good. Specifically, Damian Lillard looked really freaking good that night. I mean, he was hitting some bullcrap shots, let me tell you. There were two. There was one he pulled up from like 30 and nailed it. There was some corner three he hit with a dude fouling him and he nailed it. Just ridiculous, okay? You wouldn't know from the stat line of only 15 points, but the man was absolutely ridiculous in that game. And a lot of people have him as a high MVP candidate. And as we all know, unless you're Russell Westbrook, you need to be a top seed in the West in order to win MVP. So what I'm going to think about today is, can the Blazers be one of those top seeds in the West? Obviously, the first seed is going to the Lakers. Can the Blazers manage to snatch maybe the second or third seed, which could give them the ability to win Dame and MVP? That's what I want to talk about today, guys. I hope you enjoy this video. So, last year, the Portland Trail Blazers had two main reasons that they almost missed the playoffs. Reason number one is injuries. They had hella injuries last year, okay? Ridiculous amount of injuries. Their third best player, Yusuf Nurkic, missed a lot of the season. Zach Collins got hurt at the end. They had like several other guys get hurt during the season. And the second reason was that the Trailblazers management did a god-awful job building the team around Dame and CJ, because you're looking at two backcourt guys who are bad defenders, okay? They're bad defenders, just straight up. And so what do you need around two bad defenders in the backcourt? I would say you need a bunch of defense. So what did they do? They traded away all their good defensive players for offensive players. Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me. However, they seem to be back on the right track this offseason. They got Robert Covington. They got Derrick Jones Jr. Gary Trent's getting better, and he's an all-right defender at like the backup guard spot. Harry Giles, I know almost nothing about, but he seemed to be a decent enough two-way player last night. Again, preseason means nothing, but I know very little about Harry Giles, so just like if he continues to play like he did yesterday, he's a pretty solid player. This team is looking so much better than they were last year, guys. So much freaking better. And that was without Yusuf Nurkic playing in the game last night. All right. And it's last night when I'm recording this, obviously, because I believe this video will be coming up on Sunday, which is tomorrow. All right, no Nurkic, no Zach Collins. I'm assuming Nurkic is going to be back soon. For Zach Collins, I don't know. He could miss the entire season. If he does, it's not a major blow, but if he doesn't, that would be good for the Blazers just because he's a solid, like, forward center guy. So he's a solid enough player. Hopefully he comes back. So I'm assuming he's going to come back like halfway through the season, and Nurkic is going to be there for around the start of the season. So looking at this team, they got a real solid starting lineup, all right? I'm assuming it's going to look something like Dame, CJ, Rocco, Nurkic, and then I don't know who the fourth guy is. Maybe it's Melo, maybe it's Giles. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Derrick Jones. I really have no idea who's going to start at power forward for this team. But they're going to be a little bit better on defense this year. Robert Covington, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. Really good dude, and he can shoot the three. Yusuf Nurkic is a solid enough rim protector. He's not a great defender by any means, but he's also not like bad. I'd say he's right there in that Vucevic tier of being like just outside the top 5 centers in the NBA. Assuming he comes back at 100%. CJ McCollum, he's a very good player. Damian Lillard, you all know him. He's a fantastic player, a superstar, right around the number 10 best player in the NBA. All right, very, very good player. So, this team is looking good. And then off the bench, like I said, Gary Trent, maybe Harry Giles, Fernie Simons could be pretty good this season. He didn't do much last night, but he could be pretty good this season. Enes Kanter is an okay backup center, I guess. All right, a lot of decent depth on this team now. Finally, they're building around Dame. Took them, I don't know how many years. I don't know what they were thinking last year when they screwed up this whole roster, but they're looking to be back on track this year. But is it enough, is the question. Because you look at this team, and Dame's a superstar, but he's not quite like top 5. I would say he's still worse than Steph Curry, assuming Curry comes back at 100%. He doesn't play defense. CJ McCollum, Great secondary offensive option. Again, doesn't play defense. Yusuf Nurkic is a very good player, not quite a star. But I just don't know if they have enough talent on this team, even with Dame, to be a top seed in the West. I'm not saying it's impossible. Okay, if this Blazers team comes out and is the second seed, Dame very well could win MVP. Okay, he absolutely could. But you look at the other teams in the West, obviously the Lakers have the 1 seed locked down. Okay, there's no real question about that unless like LeBron James gets hurt, okay, or they just rest a crap ton of games. The Lakers should have the 1 seed locked down. Then the next team, probably going to be the Clippers. Even with rest games, even with them losing like Montrezl Harrell, you still got Kawhi and Paul George. And as much as Paul George chokes in the playoffs, he's a pretty dang good regular season player. All right, they have a much better defense than the Blazers while having a pretty similar level of offense just because they have 2 actual stars. I know Paul George is a meme now, but in the regular season, he does play like a star, even if maybe not as good of a star as his contract would suggest, okay? As good as CJ McCollum is, people really overrate this dude. CJ McCollum is not an all-star level player, okay? He's just not. He's a very good scorer. I would say he's a fringe all-star, like in the East, but in the West, dude's not an all-star level player, all right? Same with Yusuf Nurkic, definitely. So the Clippers, I would say, are probably going to have the 2 seed. The Denver Nuggets also probably got a top 3 seed. You look at this team, yeah, they lost some defense. They lost Torrey Craig and Jeremy Grant, but Jokic, Murray, Michael Porter Jr., they're all going to be better next year. None of those guys are in their primes yet. Michael Porter Jr. specifically, I expect to have a very big season. So even though their defense is probably going to be a little bit worse, they're going to be such a ridiculously good offensive team that I think it's going to make up for it. I think they're going to be the 2 or the 3 seed. So I really think those 3 seeds are locked down. And then for the 4 seed, you've still got teams like the Mavs. If Porzingis is healthy and Luka keeps doing his thing, you know, the Utah Jazz are going to be very good. I saw someone do a predictions video the other day where the Jazz missed the playoffs, and I was just like, what are you smoking? There's no way in hell the Jazz missed the playoffs, okay? There's just not. No chance. So the Mavs, the Jazz, if somehow James Harden stays with the Rockets, they're going to be in the playoffs, although I would be shocked if he's not traded in the next couple weeks because the Rockets just don't want to deal with his little temper tantrums. All right, so I would say that's probably like the top 5 seeds in the West. Then you get into teams like the Blazers, the Suns, maybe the Pelicans can make it. I feel like I'm definitely forgetting someone. The Grizzlies are going to miss it because Jaren Jackson Jr. is missing a lot of games. I'm trying to think who I'm forgetting here. I said the Mavs. The Spurs aren't going to make it. The Timberwolves aren't going to make it. Who am I forgetting about right now is making the playoffs? I'm really not sure. But the point is, a lot of teams are going to make the playoffs. I would expect the Blazers to be somewhere around the 6th seed, maybe the 7th seed. I do not expect them to be a top 4 seed. I gotta be honest with you. I just don't. They've got a lot of injury-prone players in this roster, too, like Nurkic and Zach Collins if he comes back. They still don't have very good defense, despite adding Covington. They're still not, by any means, like a great defensive team. That backcourt of Dame and CJ is just terrible defensively, and they got Melo in there playing real minutes. He's a bad defender, too. I just can't see this team being good enough to get Damian Lillard that MVP. I'm sorry to say it, and if he does come out and they're a 2 or 3 seed, or maybe even the 4 seed, if he really plays just like he did last season, then maybe he can win the MVP. Maybe he can. But as of right now, I just gotta be honest, Blazers fans, I can't quite see it. He's gonna be in the MVP talk all season long, but I just can't see him quite getting there, and I don't see the Blazers managing to get a top 4 seed in the West. So, that is what I had for the video today, y'all. I hope you all enjoyed. Alright, if you did, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching.